What if the familiar Kabbalistic tree of life has a terrifying secret? A dark, inverted reflection, a realm not of divine emanations, but of demonic forces and primordial chaos. Is the tree of life only half the story? For centuries, students of Kabbalah have gazed upon the intricate structure of the tree of life, its 10 sephirot shimmering with divine attributes. But what if this familiar diagram, this supposed map of the divine, is only a partial representation of reality, a carefully curated selection of the forces at play in the cosmos? What if, lurking beneath the ordered branches and radiant blossoms, lies a tangled, shadowy root system, a counter tree teeming with monstrous fruit and poisoned thorns? This is the realm of the Qliphoth, the shadow side of the tree of life, a terrifying and often deliberately obscured dimension that represents not divine order, but primordial chaos, not harmonious balance, but the potential for corruption and imbalance inherent in all of creation. But is the Qliphoth a literal place, a metaphysical metaphor, or perhaps something far more terrifying? Both. The Qliphoth are not merely a collection of demonic entities, a rogues gallery of infernal personalities, but a complex system reflecting the potential for corruption and imbalance inherent in creation itself. Each Qliphothic sphere represents a distortion or perversion of a corresponding sephira, a dark mirror reflecting the divine attributes in grotesque and unsettling ways. Consider, for example, Hesed, the sephira of mercy, a force of boundless compassion and loving kindness. When distorted, it becomes Galachab, the burning ones, representing merciless judgment, unchecked destruction, and the consuming fires of divine wrath unleashed without restraint. This mirroring and inversion is a core pattern, a fundamental key to unlocking the mysteries of the Qliphoth, for each divine attribute has a corresponding shadow aspect, a potential for imbalance that must be understood if we are to navigate the complexities of existence with wisdom and discernment. Even Kether, the crown, the very embodiment of divine unity, finds its shadow in thaumiel duality, suggesting that even the most sublime aspects of divinity can be fractured into opposing forces, a concept mirrored in the literary idea of the shadow self, that hidden aspect of our personality that contains all the traits and impulses we repress or deny. To truly understand the Qliphoth, we must also briefly introduce the concept of Sitra, the other side in Kabbalistic thought. This is the realm of the Qliphoth, existing as a necessary counterpoint to the realm of holiness or Sitra de Kedusha, for without shadow there can be no light, without chaos, no order. Some Kabbalists believe that Sitra Atra is less of a physical place and more of an energetic force, a primal surge of unbridled potential that, while necessary for balance, is inherently dangerous and chaotic, like a nuclear reactor that, if not properly contained, can unleash untold devastation. Why is understanding this dark side so important? Because ignoring the Qliphoth is like ignoring your own shadow self. It leads to imbalance, to a skewed perception of reality, and to the potential for self-destruction. To focus solely on the light, to deny the existence of darkness, is to blind ourselves to the full spectrum of existence, to embrace a comforting illusion while remaining vulnerable to the very forces we refuse to acknowledge. The potential impact of engaging with the Qliphoth is immense, ranging from increased self-awareness and a deeper understanding of the universe to psychological instability, ethical compromise, and even spiritual danger. It is a path that must be approached with caution, respect, and a strong ethical foundation, like a surgeon wielding a scalpel, knowing that the power to heal is inextricably linked to the potential to harm. Some scholars even believe that only experienced practitioners, those with years of dedicated study and a solid grounding in ethical principles, should even attempt to work with these energies, for the Qliphoth are not to be trifled with. But what knowledge can be gained by exploring this forbidden realm? Insights into the nature of temptation, the roots of destructive behavior, and the hidden forces that shape our world, for one. Consider Lilith, often dismissed as a mere demoness, a succubus lurking in the shadows. Through the lens of the Qliphoth, she becomes a symbol of repressed female sexuality, a rebellion against patriarchal norms, and a warning about the dangers of unchecked desire. Indeed, exploring the Qliphoth can offer profound insights into social issues, shining a light on the dark undercurrents that drive conflict, inequality, and oppression. Thus, the core themes of balance, discernment, self-awareness, and ethical responsibility become paramount in our exploration. Our goal is not to demonize the Qliphoth, to cast them as purely evil, but to understand them, to integrate their lessons into a balanced worldview, recognizing that darkness, when approached with respect and understanding, can be a powerful teacher, a catalyst for growth and transformation. Before we delve deeper, let us briefly review some essential background elements, beginning with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. As many of you know, the Tree of Life is a complex diagram consisting of 10 interconnected spheres, or sephirot, each representing a different divine attribute or emanation. A visual aid will be displayed. These sephirot, arranged in a specific configuration, are intended to be a map of consciousness, a framework for understanding the relationship between the divine and the human, and a tool for spiritual growth and transformation. To work with them is to invite positive change into your life. Now let us introduce the core concept of the Qliphoth as the shells or husks that surround and obscure the divine light of the sephirot. These are not independent entities, but rather distortions or imbalances within the divine emanations themselves, like a dirty mirror that reflects a distorted image, obscuring the true beauty and clarity of the original. To start laying the groundwork for our future discussions of specific Qliphothic spheres, let us briefly mention a few key examples. First, Thaumiel, the sphere of duality, representing the fractured unity of Kether. Then, Gamaliel, the sphere of obscene images, a realm of sexual perversion and uncontrolled lust. And finally, Lilith, associated with Nahimath, a symbol of repressed female sexuality and primal rage. A visual aid representing the Qliphothic Tree of Life, or inverted tree, will be displayed. Notice the reversed order and distorted relationships between the spheres. It is important to remember that the Qliphothic tree is not simply an inverted version of the Tree of Life, but a dynamic and chaotic system in its own right, with its own unique laws and energies, and that attempting to map the two trees exactly can lead to misunderstanding and even spiritual danger. So, are the Qliphoth real, metaphorical, or both? What are the implications of acknowledging the Qliphoth for our understanding of ourselves, our world, and the divine? How do we navigate them safely? The Qliphoth represent a hidden dimension of reality, a realm accessible only through careful study, spiritual practice, and ethical discernment, a journey fraught with peril if approached without the proper respect and preparation. Recurring symbols and archetypes lurk within, such as serpents, dragons, and shadowy figures, each holding a key to unlocking deeper understanding, and each representing a potential danger. And so, as we prepare to delve deeper into this dark and fascinating realm, let us ask ourselves a crucial question that will guide our exploration. How can we recognize the influence of the Qliphoth in our own lives and in the world around us? How can we identify unbalanced thinking, destructive behaviors, and the subtle ways in which these shadowy forces manifest in our daily experiences? Let's begin to find out. Alright, so let's unveil the Qliphothic tree, this distorted reflection of the Tree of Life. Imagine a mirror, shattered and reassembled haphazardly, reflecting not the divine order, but a chaotic jumble of shadows and distorted shapes. This is the Qliphothic tree, an inverted structure that emphasizes imbalance and primordial chaos, an unsettling reminder that even the most sacred systems have a dark side. It's not merely a reversed version of the Tree of Life, but a dynamic system in its own right, a chaotic realm where the laws of cause and effect are twisted, and the potential for corruption looms large. Now I'll display a visual diagram of the Qliphothic tree so you can see its disturbing design. Note the inversion, the tangled connections, and the overall sense of unease it evokes. Do you see how different it is from the tree of life, how the Sephirot shine with divine light, while the Qliphoth lurk in shadow? This difference is not accidental, but fundamental to understanding the nature of the Qliphoth. At the helm of these spheres of shadow stand the 11 archdemons, the rulers of the Qliphothic realms. These are not just names to be feared, but energetic currents that have been named. Think of them as powerful forces, like hurricanes or earthquakes, capable of immense destruction, but also, potentially, of transformation. Now, before you conjure images of horned devils and fiery pits, let's remember that these are symbolic representations of imbalance, chaos, and the darker aspects of the human psyche. Kabbalistic texts, such as the Sefer HaTemana, describe these entities in detail, attributing specific characteristics and powers to each one. But it's important to remember that Death is a false sephira, a void, an abyss, so its demon is more of an abstract concept, a representation of the nothingness that lies beyond the veil of illusion. And so it's important to consider the names and forms attributed to them. Are they distinct entities or simply energetic currents given form by the human mind? It's a question that has plagued Kabbalists for centuries and one that we will continue to explore. What do you make of this energetic dark side? Let's begin a detailed exploration of 3 key Qliphothic spheres, Thaumiel, Gamaliel, and Lilith. We will start with Thaumiel, the sphere of duality. Its name means the twins of God, or those that are the perfection of God, but it is in reference to division and seeing things as separate. This sphere reflects Kether, the crown, the source of unity, but it represents fractured unity, conflict, and the inability to reconcile opposites. Rather than embracing the oneness of existence, Thaumiel revels in division, fostering discord and animosity. In some texts, the archdemons ruling Thaumiel are Satan and Moloch. How can we reconcile these figures? Well, Moloch demands sacrifice, and Satan is the adversary. Together, they represent the ultimate division, the sacrifice of the self to the ego, the triumph of the adversary over the divine. The leaders of Thaumiel are the demons who convince you to sacrifice what is good to get what you want. Consider the leaders of Thaumiel and their connection to modern politics, where division and polarization have become the norm. Political discourse is no longer about finding common ground, but about demonizing the opposition, creating an us versus them mentality that mirrors the fractured unity of Thaumiel. Now you see the division everywhere. Each side sees the other as evil. This division serves to empower those who manipulate the masses, those who profit from chaos and conflict. Thaumiel reminds us that the path to true unity requires transcending duality, embracing the inherent oneness of existence, and resisting the urge to divide and conquer. In contrast, Kether is unity, representing the divine source from which all things emanate. While Thaumiel revels in separation, Kether embraces oneness, seeing all things as interconnected and interdependent. Let us now turn to Gamaliel, the sphere of obscene images, the shadow side of Tiferet, the sphere of beauty and harmony. Gamaliel represents unchecked sexual energy, leading to obsession and perversion, mirroring the creative and balanced energies of Tiferet. The name itself, obscene images, speaks to the distorted and degraded forms that this energy can take. Lilith, queen of the night, rules over Gamaliel, embodying the seductive and destructive aspects of uncontrolled desire. But what is the dark side of the sun? The sun nurtures all life, but also burns it without remorse. What is the darkness in its flames? Now Gamaliel's symbolism extends beyond mere sexual perversion, representing any form of unchecked desire or addiction. It is the realm of obsession, where the pursuit of pleasure becomes a destructive force, blinding us to the true beauty and harmony of existence. Lilith, as the consort of Samael, the archdemon, holds powerful ties to female sexuality, but does this always mean that Lilith is evil? No. Lilith represents repressed female sexuality and the dangers of patriarchal societal norms. She is the embodiment of female power, independence, and rebellion against male dominance. By understanding Lilith, We can reclaim our own inner power, embrace our sexuality, and challenge the limiting beliefs that society imposes upon us. How can we find female empowerment in her energy? By understanding the dark side and the parts of it that are truly dark. Now let's shift our focus and continue our exploration of Qliphothic spheres with Samil, Arab Zarak, and Thagirian, each holding a piece of the puzzle that is the shadow side of the tree of life. Consider Samil, the poison of God, the perversion of Had, the sphere of intellect and logic. Had, in its purest form, represents clear thinking, effective communication, and the ability to analyze and understand the world around us. But when distorted, it becomes Samil, a force of destructive intellect, where logic is twisted and used to justify evil, where reason is employed to manipulate and control. How does absolute logic poison life? Samil is the realm of ideological fanaticism, where rigid adherence to a belief system trumps compassion, empathy, and common sense. Remember, balance is the key to maintaining our understanding of reality, but here's what most people miss. Samil is not just about intellectual arrogance. It is also about the dangers of unchecked power. Now we ask ourselves how absolute power can be justified using perverted logic. Think about the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, where twisted ideologies were used to justify oppression, violence, and genocide. Leaders like Hitler and Stalin employed sophisticated propaganda techniques to manipulate public opinion, using logic and rhetoric to convince their followers that their actions were justified, even necessary, for the greater good. In this way, the Qliphothic sphere of Samil offers a chilling warning about the dangers of unchecked power and ideological fanaticism. It reminds us that logic, without compassion and ethical grounding, can become a destructive force, poisoning our minds and leading us down a path of darkness. That which gives us life can take it away. Let's consider Arab Zarak, the dispersing ravens, the distortion of Netzach, the sphere of victory and emotion. Netzach represents triumph, perseverance, and the ability to overcome obstacles through passion and determination. But when distorted, it becomes Arab Zarak, a force of chaos and dispersion, where victory is hollow and fleeting, and emotions are used to manipulate and deceive. How can a loss be a good thing? Zarak is ruled by Baal, also known as Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, a symbol of decay, corruption, and the seductive power of false promises. What does victory mean if it is not based in truth? Baal, as a lord, represents the dangers of serving the wrong masters, of placing our faith in those who seek to exploit and control us. When people serve the wrong lords, their victories are hollow, their triumphs are fleeting, and their emotions are manipulated for nefarious purposes. Think about the empty promises of consumerism, where we are led to believe that happiness can be found in material possessions, or the seductive rhetoric of political demagogues who exploit our fears and prejudices to gain power. Zarak reminds us that true victory is not about dominating others or accumulating wealth, but about aligning ourselves with truth, integrity, and compassion. It is about finding strength in our emotions, not allowing them to be used against us. But we're just scratching the surface here. What happens when emotion and impulse win over logic? Finally, we arrive at Thagirian, the shell of Tiferet, the sphere of beauty, harmony, and the true self. Tiferet represents balance, integration, and the ability to find harmony within ourselves and in the world around us. But when distorted, it becomes Thagirian, a force of ego, pride, and the illusion of self-importance. What happens when the ego becomes more important than the true self? Thagirian, also known as Belphegor, represents laziness and pride, a god of openings and revelations, but these gifts have conditions that trap followers in sin. A gift from Belphegor is a monkey's paw. Thagirian is the realm of inflated egos, where individuals become so obsessed with their own image that they lose touch with reality. It is the realm of narcissism, where empathy is absent and others are seen merely as tools to be used for personal gain. What do you get if you give the world but lose your soul? The emptiness is the darkness of Thagirian. Throughout the Qliphothic spheres, certain symbols recur, weaving a tapestry of primal energies and hidden dangers. The serpent, for instance, appears in various forms, representing both wisdom and deception. It is the tempter, the trickster, the force that challenges our beliefs and leads us down forbidden paths. Are these paths dangerous, or are they simply unexplored? What is the cost of wisdom? The dragon, too, is a recurring motif, symbolizing chaos and destruction, but also potential transformation. It is the raw, untamed energy that can either destroy us or propel us to new heights of understanding. Think of the dragon as the fire of creation, the force that can both forge and consume. Now we ask ourselves what new world the dragon is currently building. The archetypal figures associated with the Qliphoth, such as Lilith, Nama, and the various demons, play crucial roles as tempters, destroyers, and agents of chaos. Lilith, as we have seen, represents repressed female sexuality and rebellion against patriarchal norms. Nama, her sister, embodies seduction, enchantment, and the alluring power of the senses. These figures are not simply evil entities to be feared, but complex representations of the darker aspects of human nature, the repressed desires, the hidden impulses, and the destructive tendencies that lurk within us all. And remember, these are often the first entities encountered when working with the demonic, because these are the powers and forces that shape us from the start. But why are these dark forces so often encountered? Is it because they are easier to access, or because they reflect something fundamental about our own nature? Now, before we continue, I want you to consider this. Are the Qliphoth simply external forces, or are they reflections of our own inner darkness? What if these demons and shadowy figures are merely projections of our own repressed emotions, our own destructive tendencies, our own shadow selves? This is a question that we must grapple with if we are to truly understand the nature of the Qliphoth. What revelations might we find if we turn inward, but we're just scratching the surface? What awaits us when we delve into the historical and modern manifestations of Qliphothic influence? What practical advice can we glean for navigating these treacherous waters safely? The answers, as we'll soon discover, are both terrifying and transformative. Now let's descend further into the practical implications of the Qliphoth and explore how these shadowy forces manifest, not just in esoteric rituals, but in the mundane realities of our daily existence. For the truly terrifying truth is that the Qliphoth are not confined to ancient grimoires or dimly lit temples. They are active here and now, subtly influencing our thoughts, emotions, and actions, often without our conscious awareness. The Qliphoth are not always dramatic or obvious, not always world-ending events. What's more, they can be quiet, internal imbalances that subtly erode our well-being and distort our perception of reality. Consider, for example, the seemingly innocuous act of procrastination. We often attribute it to laziness or poor time management, but from a Qliphothic perspective, procrastination can be linked to Gagil, the Qliphothic sphere representing a resistance to creation and manifestation. Each day we put off beginning something important, we are, in effect, denying our creative potential, allowing the forces of stagnation and inertia to take hold. How does Gagil manifest as procrastination? When we avoid pursuing our goals or completing important tasks, we're allowing Gagil to take hold. And have we asked ourselves why it's so hard to begin? The resistance, the avoidance, the feeling of being stuck, these are all subtle manifestations of Qliphothic energies at play in our lives. Think about it. Are there areas of your life where you consistently procrastinate? What creative projects have you been putting off? What goals have you abandoned before even starting? These may be areas where Gagil's influence is particularly strong. In my own experience, I've often found myself putting off writing tasks, convincing myself that I need more research, more time, more something, but the truth is, the resistance is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. And this fear, this resistance to creation, is precisely what Gagil feeds upon. Now, how can we begin identifying these Qliphothic imbalances within ourselves? How can we go about addressing the negative patterns that are often so hard to see? The first step as with any journey of self-discovery, is honest self-assessment. Take some time for introspection and consider the recurring patterns in your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Do you find yourself repeatedly falling into the same negative thought patterns, such as self-criticism, pessimism, or paranoia? Are you prone to addictive behaviors, such as overeating, substance abuse, or compulsive shopping? Do you often react to situations with excessive anger, anxiety, or depression? These are all potential indicators of qliphothic imbalances within your psyche. One practical technique for self-assessment is journaling. Take some time each day to write about your feelings, thoughts, and experiences without judgment or censorship. Allow yourself to express whatever comes to mind, even if it's uncomfortable or unpleasant. As you write, look for recurring themes, patterns, and triggers. What situations or people tend to evoke negative emotions in you? What limiting beliefs or assumptions do you hold about yourself and the world? Journaling can be a powerful tool for shining a light on the hidden corners of your psyche and identifying the qliphothic influences that may be holding you back. Do not forget, honesty and self-compassion are paramount to self-discovery, but simply identifying these imbalances is not enough. We must also take active steps to counteract these qliphothic energies and restore balance to our lives. So what practices might we engage in? One of the most effective tools for counteracting qliphothic energies is meditation. By quieting the mind and cultivating mindfulness, we can create space between ourselves and our thoughts and emotions, allowing us to observe them without getting carried away. This can help us to break free from the grip of negative thought patterns and to develop a more balanced perspective. Grounding and centering techniques are also essential. These practices help us to connect with the earth and to anchor ourselves in the present moment, counteracting the dispersive and destabilizing effects of qliphothic energies. Spending time in nature can also be incredibly beneficial. The natural world is a powerful source of healing and restoration, helping us to reconnect with our own inner balance and harmony. Creative expression can also be a powerful antidote to qliphothic influences. Engaging in activities such as painting, writing, music, or dance can help us to channel our emotions in constructive ways, transforming destructive energies into creative forces. What about service? Acts of service, such as volunteering or helping others in need, can also be incredibly powerful. By focusing our attention on others, we can break free from our own self-absorption and connect with something larger than ourselves. But these are by no means exhaustive. How else can we ground ourselves? And as we navigate the complexities of modern life, it is essential to develop the ability to discern qliphothic temptations, to recognize the seductive allure of the darker aspects of existence. The lure of power, the allure of instant gratification, the seductive appeal of nihilism, these are all temptations that can lead us down a path of destruction if we are not careful. So how do we sharpen our ability to discern the tempting darkness? One of the most effective strategies is to cultivate a strong moral compass, a clear set of values that guide our decisions and actions. Take the time to reflect on what truly matters to you, what principles you are willing to stand for, and what lines you are unwilling to cross. When faced with a difficult decision, ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this serve the greater good? Does this promote harmony and balance? If the answer is no, then it is likely a qliphothic temptation in disguise. Identifying red flags and warning signs is also important. Pay attention to your intuition, your gut feelings, and your emotional responses. If something feels wrong, if it triggers a sense of unease or discomfort, it is likely a sign that you are being tempted by a qliphothic influence. Resist the urge to rationalize or dismiss these feelings. Trust your instincts and take a step back to reassess the situation. Do not forget, a strong community of like-minded seekers can offer invaluable support and guidance, helping us to stay true to our values and resist the allure of temptation. So why is it that we so often underestimate the value of community? Is it pride? Is it self-reliance? Or is it simply a lack of awareness of the subtle ways in which Qliphothic forces can isolate and divide us? But the Qliphoth are not just abstract forces lurking in the shadows of our minds. They manifest in the world around us, in the actions of individuals, the policies of institutions, and the trends of society. The terrifying reality is that the Qliphoth are at work in our modern world, shaping our culture, our politics, and our very perceptions of reality. Charismatic but manipulative leaders, corrupt business tycoons, individuals who promote division and hatred, these are all contemporary figures who embody Qliphothic archetypes, exploiting the fears and desires of others for their own personal gain. How can these archetypes thrive, and what are they really after? These figures often possess a certain charisma, a seductive charm that draws people in and makes them susceptible to their influence. They are masters of manipulation, able to exploit the vulnerabilities and insecurities of others, playing on their fears and desires to gain control. And they are often driven by a relentless pursuit of power, wealth, or fame, willing to stop at nothing to achieve their goals. What lies beneath the surface? The scariest of these figures seem like reflections of our own internal shortcomings. It's not that they are tempting us to do new things, but to give in to our already present desires. How often do we give in to our impulses? Consider, for instance, the pervasive influence of consumerism and materialism in our modern society. From a Qliphothic perspective, consumerism can be seen as a manifestation of Gadgil, the Qliphothic sphere associated with greed and emptiness. The relentless pursuit of material possessions, the constant bombardment of advertising messages, the equation of self-worth with what we own, these are all ways in which Gadgil's influence is felt in our lives. What are the true goals of this consumerist obsession? The underlying message is clear: we are not enough as we are. We need to buy more, acquire more, and consume more in order to be happy, successful, and fulfilled. But this is a lie, a seductive illusion that keeps us trapped in a cycle of endless desire and dissatisfaction. It's hard to resist. We all like things. How do we know what we want and what Gadgil wants? It's tough. The dangers of equating self-worth with possessions is the first step. So how might we address this? By cultivating contentment and gratitude, by appreciating what we already have rather than constantly striving for more, by recognizing that true happiness comes from within, not from without. Political corruption, too, can be linked to Qliphothic forces, specifically Thaggerian, the sphere associated with ego and domination. Unchecked power, self-interest, and the abuse of authority are all hallmarks of Thaggerian's influence in the political realm. How does Thaggerian corrupt? We see this manifested in the revolving door of lobbying, shady backroom deals, and outright bribery. This is where the language of law is twisted to serve the powerful. A politician who is more interested in amassing power and wealth than in serving the public good is acting as an agent of Thaggerian, perpetuating a cycle of corruption and injustice. Accountability and transparency are required, but how can they be built? Social media, with its constant stream of images, opinions, and fleeting trends, can amplify Gamaliel, the Qliphothic sphere associated with obscene images and distorted perceptions of reality. What happens when everyone's an influencer? The curated images, the carefully crafted personas, the constant comparison of oneself to others, these are all ways in which Gamaliel's influence is felt in the digital world. The rise of digital addiction, the spread of misinformation, the erosion of privacy, these are all symptoms of a society increasingly under the sway of Gamaliel. Social media has become an echo chamber, amplifying our insecurities and distorting our perceptions of reality. How can we retain our authentic selves in this age? By cultivating self-acceptance and body positivity. It is about recognizing that our worth is not determined by our appearance or our online popularity, but by our character, our values, and our contributions to the world. What can be done about this digital addiction? To truly grasp the Qliphoth's terrifying reality, we must examine not only its theoretical underpinnings, but also its concrete manifestations in history and in our modern world. Let us consider a few stark examples. Take the historical case of Gilles de Rais, a 15th-century French nobleman and serial killer, as an example of unchecked cruelty and depravity linked to the Qliphothic sphere of Golochab. The crimes committed by de Rais were horrific beyond imagination. He and his associates tortured, sexually abused, and murdered hundreds of children, reveling in their suffering and death. But what darkness allowed this to grow? The psychological factors that may have contributed to his behavior are complex and multifaceted, but it is clear that he was a deeply disturbed individual, consumed by lust for power and a thirst for violence. Gilles de Rais serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the destructive potential of unchecked cruelty. But while few of us may descend to such depths, we may ask ourselves, what are the internal seeds that could grow such cruelty? Now, let's shift our attention to a more modern example, the Sackler family and their role in the opioid crisis. This serves as a stark illustration of greed and corruption linked to the Qliphothic sphere of Gadgil. The Sackler family, through their company Purdue Pharma, aggressively marketed the opioid painkiller OxyContin, downplaying its addictive potential and reaping enormous profits. What was the extent of this tragedy? The marketing practices used by Purdue Pharma were deceptive and manipulative, targeting vulnerable populations and flooding communities with highly addictive drugs. The opioid epidemic has had a devastating impact on communities across the United States, leading to countless deaths, broken families, and widespread addiction. The Sackler family's actions demonstrate the destructive consequences of unchecked greed and the willingness to prioritize profit over human life. Can money buy happiness or even wash the blood from one's hands? But these historical cases aren't the only places that we find the echoes of the Qliphoth. Literature and film are often rich sources of symbolism for these forces and the themes they represent. Consider Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray as an exploration of Thaumiel. In the novel, Dorian Gray makes a pact to remain young and beautiful while his portrait ages and reflects his moral decay. The portrait acts as a distorted mirror, reflecting Dorian's true self, his fractured soul, and the consequences of prioritizing external beauty over inner integrity. What does it say of us that this is so appealing a story? The novel explores the dangers of duality, the separation between appearance and reality, and the destructive consequences of succumbing to vanity and self-obsession. Thaumiel manifests in Dorian's inability to reconcile his inner and outer selves, leading him down a path of moral corruption and ultimately to his own destruction. Do we always reflect our inner selves on the outside? Do the masks we wear show what we're really hiding? The Star Wars saga provides a pop culture connection to Samuel, the poison of God. Emperor Palpatine embodies the principles of this Qliphoth. He is a master manipulator, using logic and rhetoric to justify his thirst for power and control. Palpatine preys on Anakin Skywalker's fears and insecurities, poisoning his mind with doubts and resentment, ultimately leading him down the path to the dark side. In what ways do we see this happen in our own lives? Palpatine represents the seductive power of ideological fanaticism, the willingness to sacrifice compassion and empathy in the name of a twisted vision of order and security. What does this say about us and our vision of a stable world? But here's what most people miss. The Qliphoth are not simply external forces lurking in the shadows of the world. They are reflections of our own inner darkness, our own repressed emotions, our own unacknowledged desires. The Qliphothic energies exist within our consciousness, shaping our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, often without our conscious awareness. How do we know what lies within us? The Qliphoth, in other words, are the shadow. Connect the Qliphoth to the Jungian concept of the shadow self, emphasizing that they represent repressed emotions, unacknowledged desires, and destructive impulses. To truly understand the Qliphoth, we must be willing to confront our own inner darkness, to explore the hidden corners of our psyche, and to acknowledge the potential for imbalance that exists within each of us. This requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to challenge our own self-perceptions. What would it mean to face our fears? Therefore, acknowledging the Qliphoth allows us to take responsibility for our own actions and to recognize the potential for harm that exists within each of us. Ethical decision-making and accountability are paramount. Resist temptation and stay true to your values. For how can we be ethical if we do not know ourselves? The ultimate goal is not to eliminate the Qliphoth, an impossible task, but to integrate their lessons and to transform their destructive energies into constructive forces, leading to wholeness. So how can we transform darkness into light? Through the integration of shadow aspects. The transformation of the shadow is more than just being nice, but allowing for the potential of darkness to be included in one's life, not suppressed. By embracing our shadow selves, we can become more compassionate, more resilient, and more authentic. We can transform our weaknesses into strengths, our fears into courage, and our darkness into light. This requires self-compassion and forgiveness, recognizing that we are all imperfect beings, capable of both great good and great evil. What awaits as we continue our exploration of the Kabbalistic tree of death? What practical exercises can we use to recognize darkness and reforge it into light? Now let us turn our attention to Gamaliel, the Qliphothic sphere of obscene images, and its insidious presence in our digital age. For if the Qliphoth are indeed reflections of our inner imbalances, then Gamaliel serves as a stark mirror to our collective relationship with sexuality, beauty, and desire. You might ask yourself, what does any of this have to do with me? Recall that Gamaliel is associated with distorted sexuality, unchecked desires, and the perversion of beauty, and that it is connected to the Sephira of Tiferet, representing the shadow side of the sun. As we established earlier, the ruling archdemon is Lilith, and this sphere challenges the very notion of the tree of life as being the full story. But what happens when beauty becomes obsessive, when the pursuit of physical perfection consumes our thoughts and actions? Consider, for example, the seemingly innocuous act of endlessly scrolling through filtered content on social media. We often justify it as a harmless pastime, a way to relax and unwind. However, from a Qliphothic perspective, this seemingly benign activity can be seen as an amplification of Gamaliel's energies, leading to digital addiction, unrealistic expectations, and a distorted sense of reality. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found a significant correlation between social media usage and increased rates of depression, anxiety, and body dissatisfaction, particularly among young adults. But how do these algorithms work to keep us hooked? Designed to exploit our primal desires, they keep us returning for more. By presenting us with a constant stream of idealized images and carefully curated content, these platforms can create a distorted perception of reality, leading us to feel inadequate, insecure, and perpetually dissatisfied with our own lives. What starts as innocent scrolling can descend into a hellscape of constant comparisons. What can be done about it? And what of online pornography? While proponents often tout it as a harmless form of entertainment, its impact on our perceptions of sexuality and relationships can be profound and often insidious. Online pornography can create unrealistic expectations about sex and relationships, normalizing objectification, coercion, and a lack of emotional intimacy. It can desensitize us to the complexities of human connection, reducing our partners to mere objects of gratification. The commodification of sexuality in the online world contributes to the spread of Gamaliel's influence by reducing human beings to sets of attributes. How are we supposed to relate to one another when we lack the human element? Consider also the insidious creep of AI-generated companions. These digital simulacra offer the illusion of human connection, yet rob one of the experience of it. And what is the cost of this lost experience? The commodification of sexuality in advertising, entertainment, and the online world further contributes to the spread of Gamaliel's influence. Women, and increasingly men, are objectified and reduced to their physical appearance, their bodies dissected and displayed for consumption. What effect does this have on the collective psyche? These images, endlessly repeated and amplified, have a profound impact on self-esteem and body image, particularly among young people. This can manifest as body image issues, such as body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and the relentless pursuit of unattainable beauty standards. Do we measure ourselves in likes? Are we worthy only if we are beautiful? Where does this end? As we have seen before, the materialistic world equates value with external qualities. These issues are exacerbated by social media and the constant bombardment of filtered and photoshopped images. These unrealistic representations contribute to body image issues. The film The Neon Demon serves as a chilling allegory for the dark side of the beauty industry, exploring the obsession with youth and physical perfection and the destructive lengths to which people will go to attain it. But is this merely a film, or does art reflect the darkness that is already present? These fictional explorations act as a dark mirror to the very real anxieties and pressures that plague so many individuals in our society. But what if we could resist these compulsions? What if we could free ourselves from the grip of these Qliphothic forces and reclaim our authentic selves? The first step in counteracting Gamaliel's influence is to cultivate mindful engagement with digital media. This requires setting time limits, curating one's online feed, and practicing digital detoxes. We must be aware of the algorithms that shape our online experiences and actively resist their manipulative tactics. Consider your own social media feeds. What accounts make you feel worse about yourself? Are there constant reminders of people who look better or seem to live more exciting lives? Unfollowing these accounts can be a powerful act of self-care, creating space for more positive and authentic content to enter our lives. What is the cost of an hour spent online versus an hour spent in nature? Self-acceptance and body positivity are powerful antidotes to Gamaliel's distorted perceptions of beauty. We must challenge societal beauty standards and celebrate our unique bodies, recognizing that true beauty comes from within. We can actively seek out body-positive communities and support groups, surrounding ourselves with individuals who embrace diversity and celebrate self-love. If our bodies are temples, what does it mean to defile them with constant negativity? This, too, requires cultivating the will to change. The pursuit of physical perfection is a fool's errand, a never-ending cycle of dissatisfaction and self-criticism. True beauty lies in authenticity, in embracing our imperfections, and in celebrating the unique qualities that make us who we are. Creative expression can also be used to channel and transform Gamaliel's energies. Art, music, writing, or dance can provide a healthy outlet for expressing repressed emotions and reclaiming one's sexuality. The key is to find a creative outlet that resonates with you, a way to express yourself authentically, free from the constraints of societal expectations or the pressure to conform to certain beauty standards. Perhaps this means revisiting those creative projects that have been put off and left undone. What creative endeavors have been left to gather dust? It may be time to reclaim them and rediscover the joy of self-expression. Allow the repressed creative energy to blossom anew. And finally, reclaiming authentic sexuality is essential to breaking free from Gamaliel's influence. This involves exploring one's own desires and fantasies in a safe and consensual way, free from the distortions and commodification of the Qliphothic sphere. Tantra, with its emphasis on the spiritualization of sexuality, offers a path towards reclaiming the sacredness of our bodies and our desires. It is here, too, that we must resist the urge to rationalize or dismiss those feelings of unease. Consent and respect are paramount in any relationship, and we must always prioritize the well-being and autonomy of our partners. By reclaiming our sexuality, we reclaim our power, our agency, and our connection to the divine. For too long, it has been warped. Let us now expand the mirror and consider how these mirroring effects extend beyond the individual, reflecting the influence of the Qliphoth on a collective level. For societal imbalances and distortions often mirror the inner darkness of individuals, amplifying their effects and perpetuating cycles of suffering and injustice. Consider, for example, how systemic inequality and oppression can be seen as manifestations of Gamaliel, reflecting a society that devalues certain bodies and sexualities. The objectification and marginalization of women, the discrimination against LGBTQ individuals, and the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes, these are all ways in which Gamaliel's influence is felt on a societal scale. Are some bodies valued more than others? Why is this? We must actively challenge societal norms and systems that perpetuate these Qliphothic imbalances. This requires supporting organizations and movements that promote equality, justice, and liberation. It means using our voices and platforms to speak out against oppression, to challenge harmful stereotypes, and to advocate for policies that protect the rights and dignity of all individuals. How can we speak out effectively? What is our role in the transformation? Remember that even small acts of resistance can have a ripple effect, contributing to a larger movement of change. By working to transform Qliphothic energies within ourselves, we can also contribute to transforming collective energies and creating a more balanced and just world. The individual and the collective are interconnected, and our inner work has a direct impact on the world around us. As we heal our own wounds, we heal the wounds of society. As we embrace our own wholeness, we inspire others to do the same. As we work to create balance in our own lives, we contribute to creating balance in the world. But remember this, personal transformation is only the beginning. What are we transforming towards? What are our goals, our aspirations, our vision for a better world? The Qliphothic sphere can therefore be seen as a series of tests, challenging our values, our beliefs, and our commitment to spiritual growth. The trials of Gamaliel might involve resisting the temptations of digital addiction, challenging societal beauty standards, or reclaiming authentic sexuality. By facing these challenges head-on, we can strengthen our character, deepen our understanding of ourselves and the universe, and evolve. As we navigate these trials, we must remember that the ultimate goal is not to eliminate the Qliphoth, but to understand them, to integrate their lessons, and to transform their destructive energies into constructive forces. What will we do with what we learn? For it is by embracing our shadow selves and acknowledging the darkness within that we can achieve greater wholeness and balance. This requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to challenge our own self-perceptions. By confronting our fears, our insecurities, and our repressed desires, we can unlock our full potential and live more authentic, fulfilling lives. And is this the end of the story? By understanding the importance of integrating all aspects of ourselves, we will explore new paths. What other avenues might we take to better understand the world around us? As we have seen, the mirroring principle extends beyond the individual, reflecting the influence of the Qliphoth on a collective level. Societal imbalances and distortions often mirror the inner darkness of individuals, amplifying their effects and perpetuating cycles of suffering and injustice. Self-awareness, as Jung elucidated through the concept of the shadow self, is our strongest weapon against these forces. We have seen how the distorted images of Gamaliel can manifest in our digital habits and desires, highlighting the shadow side of Tiferet. But our journey into the abyss is far from over. We must now continue our descent into the more destructive and chaotic energies of the Qliphoth. What lies ahead is treacherous. Let us now turn our attention to the next three Qliphothic spheres, Golachab, Aegil, and Gashebla. These spheres represent a further descent into the abyss, exploring more destructive and chaotic energies. Golachab is connected to Jebura, severity, Aegil to Hesed, mercy, and Gashebla to Netzach, victory, each representing a distortion of those Sephiroth's qualities. How can we navigate these treacherous waters without succumbing to their influence? Let us explore them. First, we delve into Golachab, the Burning Ones. Golachab is the Qliphothic sphere associated with Jebura, severity, emphasizing its connection to merciless judgment, unchecked destruction, and the abuse of power. The name Golachab derives from Hebrew roots signifying flaming bodies, or incendiaries, evoking images of fire and burning. This fiery symbolism reflects the sphere's association with raw, untamed energy, capable of both creation and destruction. But what is the relationship between the burning ones and severity? While Jebura represents righteous strength and the power to enforce justice, Golachab embodies the perversion of these qualities. It is strength without compassion, justice without mercy, and power without restraint. The archdemon associated with Golachab is Asmodeus, a powerful entity known for his destructive rage and insatiable lust. Asmodeus embodies the unchecked passions and desires that fuel Golachab's destructive flames. Fire, swords, and whips are the key symbols associated with Golachab, representing the sphere's connection to violence, aggression, and the infliction of pain. How is this a distortion of righteous anger? Righteous anger, as Jebura embodies, can be a catalyst for positive change, driving us to confront injustice and defend the vulnerable. But in Golachab, this anger becomes twisted and perverted, used as a tool for domination, oppression, and the infliction of suffering. Psychologically, Golachab represents the shadow side of our own anger, the destructive impulses that can consume us if left unchecked. It reflects our capacity for cruelty, our willingness to inflict pain on others, and our addiction to power and control. What does this tell us about anger as an emotion? Anger, like fire, can be a powerful force for good or evil, depending on how it is directed. Next, we explore Aegil, those who strike. Aegil is the Qliphothic sphere associated with Hesed mercy, emphasizing its connection to unchecked mercy, enabling, and the erosion of justice. The name Aegil translates to those who strike, a seemingly contradictory name for a sphere associated with Hesed. However, this contradiction reveals the insidious nature of Aegil's influence. For just as Jebura's strength can become destructive, Hesed's mercy can become enabling, blinding us to the consequences of our actions and perpetuating cycles of harm. What is the connection here? While Hesed represents compassion, kindness, and the desire to alleviate suffering, Aegil embodies the perversion of these qualities. It is mercy without wisdom, compassion without discernment, and forgiveness without accountability. The archdemon associated with Aegil is Beelzebub, a powerful entity known for his corruption and manipulation. Beelzebub embodies the seductive allure of unchecked pleasure and the insidious power of lies and deception. Chains, stagnation, and decay are key symbols associated with Aegil. How can mercy be a cage? Aegil teaches us that unchecked mercy can be a cage, both for ourselves and for those we seek to help. By enabling destructive behavior, we prevent individuals from taking responsibility for their actions and learning from their mistakes. And psychologically, Aegil represents the shadow side of our own compassion, the tendency to prioritize the comfort of others over the pursuit of justice and truth. What does this look like in our own lives? It is also through Aegil that the concept of toxic forgiveness is manifested. Finally, we turn our attention to Gashebla, the smiting ones. Gashebla is the Qliphothic sphere associated with Netzach, victory, emphasizing its connection to empty victory, false hope, and the pursuit of fleeting pleasures. The name Gashebla translates to the smiting ones, evoking images of destruction and violence. But how can victory be connected to smiting? While Netzach represents triumph, perseverance, and the achievement of goals, Gashebla embodies the perversion of these qualities. It is victory without substance, achievement without meaning, and pleasure without fulfillment. What can victory mean without truth? It means nothing. The archdemon associated with Gashebla is Astaroth, a powerful entity known for her seductive beauty and her ability to grant false hope. Astaroth embodies the allure of fleeting pleasures and the deceptive nature of appearances. Mirrors, illusions, and fleeting pleasures are the key symbols associated with Gashebla, representing the sphere's connection to vanity, superficiality, and the pursuit of empty gratification. How can victories be illusions? Gashebla teaches us that victories can be illusions, hollow achievements that leave us feeling empty and unfulfilled. These are the victories of materialism. And psychologically, Qliphoth represents our reliance on fleeting pleasures to cover up for inner turmoil. Consider now how these Qliphothic influences manifest in history and culture, mirroring our own collective descent into imbalance and chaos. These are not merely abstract concepts. They are at work in the world around us. Let us start with the French Revolution as a potential manifestation of Qliphoth. The French Revolution, with its initial ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, devolved into the Reign of Terror, a period of unchecked violence and merciless judgment. The events of the Reign of Terror, including the widespread use of the guillotine, exemplify the abuse of power and the perversion of justice. Revolutionary fervor, initially fueled by righteous anger, became twisted into a bloodthirsty rage, consuming both the guilty and the innocent. How can revolutions go wrong? The French Revolution serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that even the noblest of intentions can be corrupted by the destructive energies of Qliphoth. Now let's examine Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Javott's rigid application of the law, devoid of compassion or understanding, versus Valjean's struggle with the law, represents the negative effects of Agile energies. Javott, driven by a misguided sense of duty, relentlessly pursues Valjean, even when it becomes clear that Valjean has reformed and is dedicated to helping others. Javott's actions, though seemingly motivated by justice, ultimately perpetuate suffering and injustice. He is, in effect, enabling Valjean's continued struggle. How can good intentions pave the road to hell? Les Miserables shows us that even the most well-intentioned actions can have devastating consequences if they are not tempered by wisdom, compassion, and a recognition of the complexities of human nature. Finally, we consider the social media wins of today. The pursuit of likes and followers on social media and the hollow, empty victories that come from them perfectly illustrate the modern manifestations of Qliphoth. The flex culture of online personalities, with its emphasis on superficial displays of wealth and status, represents the emptiness of victory without substance. What happens when victory has no real-world impact? It becomes a fleeting pleasure, a temporary high that quickly fades, leaving us feeling empty and unfulfilled. Qliphoth reminds us that true victory comes not from external validation, but from inner fulfillment, from pursuing meaningful goals and living a life of purpose. Having witnessed the Qliphothic influence in history and culture, what are we to make of it? As we reflect on these examples, we must confront the ethical dilemmas and practical implications of engaging with the Qliphoth. The allure of destructive energies is undeniable. Why is it so tempting to embrace chaos? The human fascination with disaster and violence is a complex phenomenon, rooted in a variety of psychological factors. Perhaps it is a way of vicariously experiencing powerful emotions, a way of testing our own limits, or a way of feeling alive in a world that often feels mundane and predictable. Whatever the reason, the allure of destructive energies is a force to be reckoned with, particularly when engaging with the Qliphoth. What is our responsibility to ourselves and others? We have a responsibility to approach these energies with caution, discernment, and a strong moral compass. We must be aware of the potential consequences of our actions and take responsibility for the choices we make. The potential consequences of misusing Qliphothic energies can be devastating, leading to psychological instability, ethical compromise, and harm to ourselves and others. But remember this, the ultimate goal is not to eliminate the Qliphoth, but to understand them, to integrate their lessons, and to transform their destructive energies into constructive forces. How can the Qliphothic poison become medicine? By channeling anger into creative expression, using sadness as a catalyst for compassion, or transforming fear into courage, we can transmute these dark energies into something positive and meaningful. Remind yourself of the importance of community during this transformation. Seek out support from trusted friends, mentors, or therapists. What does true balance look like? It looks like embracing our shadow selves, acknowledging our capacity for both good and evil, and striving to live in accordance with our highest values. Integration, not elimination, is key. By understanding the Qliphoth, we can learn to navigate the darker aspects of reality with greater awareness, compassion, and resilience. The benefits of this integration are profound. We become more whole, more balanced, and more capable of living authentic, fulfilling lives. We must understand that the Qliphoth is not a collection of external demonic entities, but is a reflection of our inner darkness. What then does our attraction to the Qliphoth say about ourselves? As we will discover, the dangers of unbalanced practice are far greater than we might imagine. As we draw to a close on our exploration of the Qliphoth, we find ourselves at the edge of a profound abyss, a shadow realm that mirrors the divine tree of life. This journey has been fraught with peril, challenging us to confront not only external forces of darkness, but also the hidden corners of our own psyches. The complexity of the Qliphoth is undeniable, a labyrinth of symbolism and demonic entities that can easily overwhelm the uninitiated. Yet, within this darkness lies a potent source of wisdom, a distorted reflection of the divine attributes that govern our universe. In reflecting upon our journey, several key themes emerge. We have seen the Qliphoth as the shadow side of the tree of life, each sphere representing a distortion or imbalance of the Sephiroth's divine qualities. The importance of balance and discernment has been a recurring motif, reminding us that both light and shadow are necessary for a complete understanding of reality. Crucially, we've explored the psychological connection between the Qliphoth and the human shadow self, recognizing that these demonic forces are not merely external entities, but also archetypal representations of repressed emotions, destructive patterns, and the potential for corruption within ourselves. This recognition is paramount to understanding that the Qliphoth are not to be feared, but understood as energetic currents. Returning to the initial question of whether the Qliphoth are real, metaphorical, or both, we can now offer a more nuanced answer. They are both. The Qliphoth are real as energetic forces, primal currents of imbalance and chaos that permeate the cosmos and influence our lives. They are real as archetypal representations, mirroring our inner darkness and the collective shadows of humanity. They are metaphorical as well, serving as potent symbols of the destructive potential inherent in creation and the ever-present threat of imbalance. In remembering the practical dangers that we discussed, remember now to stay grounded in practice and be wary of hubris. Broadening our perspective, we can see that the exploration of the Qliphoth extends far beyond the realm of esoteric theory. It challenges us to confront fundamental philosophical questions about the nature of good and evil, the human capacity for destruction, and the importance of self-awareness and responsibility. The Qliphoth compel us to confront our own shadow selves, to acknowledge our potential for both light and darkness, and to take responsibility for the choices we make. Understanding the Qliphoth is especially relevant in navigating the complexities of modern society, where Qliphothic energies manifest in materialism, consumerism, political corruption, social unrest, and various forms of moral decay. This requires us to remain vigilant. As we move forward, remember this. With the insights that we've discussed and put in place, there can be an element of wholeness that can also aid us in our development. Embrace your shadow selves and use the knowledge gained to create a more balanced and fulfilling existence. The journey of self-discovery is an ongoing process, and the Qliphoth, despite their terrifying reputation, can be valuable teachers if approached with respect, discernment, and a strong moral compass. You now have a greater appreciation for the delicate balance between light and shadow, creation and destruction, and the divine and the demonic. As you embrace the shadow, wholeness will follow. And so we conclude our exploration of the Qliphoth, those shadowy realms that mirror the tree of life. They are a necessary part of the whole, not something to be feared, but understood. In truth, they are the darkness that defines the light. Let this symbol remind us to forever be vigilant in our journey. Fellow mystics, share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What insights resonated most deeply with you? How do you see the Qliphoth manifesting in your own life or in the world around you? And what are the practical steps that you will take to integrate the lessons of the Qliphoth and create a more balanced existence? If this journey has sparked a fire within, then continue your own journey into the abyss. There is more to be learned. In closing, we have provided a framework for understanding the Qliphoth and their profound relevance to our lives. We set out to explore the shadow side of the Kabbalistic tree of life, and we have now illuminated the complex interplay of forces that shape our reality. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of darkness. May the light guide your path upward and onward.